Hi everybody, it's Thursday, so here we are at Now You're Cooking, and we're doing another demo tonight. Tonight we are making corned beef hash, which is a delicious meal, obviously, for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. And we're also going to show you how to make perfect poached eggs. Wish me luck there. Now that I've said perfect, they better darn well come out right. Next week, Mike is going to be doing a tour of the gadget wall. So tune in for that. He's going to be talking about, I think he has a recipe he's going to make, but he's also going to talk about gadgets and maybe some things that you should have in your kitchen if you don't already have them. So we're going to get started with the hash. First thing I'm going to do is I have a big pan. I've already prepped my ingredients, and the great thing about hash is that you can use anything. It was traditionally made to use up leftovers, like potatoes and corned beef. So pretty much corned beef, potatoes, and onions are a must-have, at least in my opinion. And then I also have some beets. I had some leftover beets, canned beets. If you can get fresh ones, they're much better. And I have some carrots. You do want to cook your potatoes and your beets ahead of time because they won't cook quickly enough in the fry pan. So as far as the corned beef, if you don't eat meat or you don't like corned beef, you can use fish. You could use chicken. You could use pulled pork. You could use almost any kind of meat that you wanted. If you don't eat meat at all, you could have tempeh or tofu, or just do a bunch of vegetables. So if you want the protein in there, you can put in a substitute, but if not, just using up your vegetables works just fine. So we're going to start with our pan, and I'm making a pretty big batch here, so I have a big pan. Cast iron is great. I wouldn't probably use a nonstick pan because you really want it to kind of brown, and it may not brown as well in a nonstick pan. So we're going to let that warm up just a little bit. I also have some water boiling for my eggs, which I'm going to turn down in a sec because we'll make those after this gets started. So as you can see, I have cubed things all more or less the same size, and that is really for no reason except aesthetics. It looks better if everything's the same rather than, huge chunks of potatoes and small pieces of this and that and the other thing. But it also means that every bite you take, you're going to have a little bit of all of the different flavors. Again, you can use whatever you want. If you have Brussels sprouts left over, chop those up and put those in. Any kind of vegetables. You can use sweet potatoes. Yesterday I made a batch with sweet potatoes, which was really fabulous. Squash, anything that you have, and it doesn't matter if it's going to get mushy. That'll just kind of help it stick everything together. So really, anything that you have that's left over will be great. I'm going to just turn the water down for a minute here, and that's getting warm. So I'm going to add some oil. You can use oil or butter. And 2 or 3 tablespoons. You can always add more if you need to. And I should have segregated my onions, but we are a no segregation state here. But I'm going to try to just get my onions in there first because I want those to sort of get a little bit translucent and cooked through. But it doesn't really matter if some of the beets and carrots go in there too. As I say, we don't really segregate here. It's all for one for all. So I would have liked this to just be onions, but it's really not a big deal because everything's really going to get cooked really well anyway. It's going to get browned. So we're just going to swoosh this around in our oil. I'm using olive oil because that's what I have here. You can use any kind of oil that you like. With olive oil, you don't want it super, super hot because it has a low smoke point and it will burn. But we're not going to really go above, as I turn my heat down, we're not going to go above like a medium, low to medium, at least for starters. Okay, so hash, interestingly, comes from the French word hacher or hacher, which means to chop, and I don't really know how to pronounce it because I don't speak French. But that is where the word comes from, or so they think, they. So it's really all chopped up stuff. It's chopped up leftovers, as I said, usually. But what I did, I went down to brackets and I just had them cut some slices of corned beef really thick. And then I just chopped it up into cubes. If you have pulled pork or pulled chicken or really well done corned beef, you can kind of put in pieces of it, just kind of shreds of it. It doesn't have to be chopped up like that, which is kind of nice too. And as I said, hash of any type is great for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. It's such a well-rounded meal. You're getting your veggies, you're getting protein. It's really yummy. It's a really good breakfast for dinner entree, in my opinion. All right. So these are getting done. You want them kind of translucent. They could probably go for another minute or so. But I'm going to add the rest. I've got the rest of my beets and carrots here. And again, these are canned beets, so they're kind of pale. If you use fresh, real beets, well, these are real beets, but you know what I mean, fresh garden beets, you want to cook them a little bit, cut them up, dice them up, wear gloves if you don't want purple hands. Dice them up and then boil them for a little while, like I did with the potatoes, because it does take a while for them to cook through. But what will happen with the beets is they will color everything kind of pink, and so it's really beautiful, especially with the potatoes. So here go my potatoes and corned beef. The other really beautiful thing about this recipe is amounts don't matter. If you're using leftovers, if you have a ton of potatoes, it'll be a potato-y hash. If you have a ton of carrots or sweet potatoes or squash or whatever, it'll be more of an orangey kind of hash. So it's really about, again, using up leftovers, using what you have. Obviously, you can go and buy things too, which is what I did for this. Although the carrots I had in my fridge at home, I had a couple of carrots, I had a half a can of beets. So I just brought them in to throw into this because it will make it delicious. The last thing we need is some salt. You don't want to over salt it because corned beef tends to be fairly salty, but you do want to get some salt on your veggies. And then I said last but not least, but I also like pepper. The recipe does not call for pepper, the recipe that I typed up. However, I usually add pepper because I like pepper. You can add any kind of spices or herbs that you like in there. Speaking of the recipe, it will be posted. Heather is away this week, so I'm not sure when it will be posted. She may get to it tonight, or it may be sometime next week. But we promise. And also the recipe's on our website if you need the recipe. But I kind of feel like you don't really need a recipe for this. Just some oil or butter, throw all your veg in, and then we're just going to let this, I'm going to turn it up to medium, and I'm just going to let this cook. This is not going to be done by the time we're done with our demo tonight, but we'll take some pictures a little bit later and show you what it looks like. I also have a little bit left from yesterday. All right, so I'm going to turn up my egg water, and I am going to add about 2 or 3 tablespoons of vinegar. I'm using red wine vinegar. You can use apple cider vinegar, white wine vinegar. I wouldn't use balsamic, but any regular type of vinegar that you have. That just helps keep the whites together. I'm not sure how it works scientifically, but that's what's happening there. Then the other secret to a really perfect poached egg is, you know how the egg white, like part of it's kind of, you have your yolk and then you have like thick kind of glutinous albumin, and then there's kind of watery egg white, and that is what you want to strain out. So we're going to put an egg in a strainer, and we're just going to let the really watery stuff strain out of there, because that's the stuff when you put this into the pan, it turns into this, it's all white, like floating around. And we don't want that. We want just perfect egg-shaped, beautiful poached eggs. And when that's done, I'm going to put each egg into its very own little cup. And my water is boiling. So I'm actually going to submerge part of the glass and just slide it gently in there. And that's pretty hot, so be careful. And you can see that one has a little bit more of that loose white. But I am going to, when I put those in, it cooled the water down, so I'm going to just turn it up just a little bit. And I want them separated. Not segregated, just separated. And those are going to start boiling. And that's going to take about 3 to 4 minutes, depending on how you like your poached eggs. If you like them really, really well done, the yolk well done, you might do 4.5 minutes or 5 minutes. If you don't mind some uncooked white, you can do it for about 3 minutes. I like my whites cooked and my yolks runny. So we'll see how we do here. And I just want to make sure they're not sticking to the bottom of the pan, but I don't want to break that yolk. Okay, so let's give this a little stir. And I have the heat up pretty high on this hash right now. But it's going to take, there's quite a lot of liquid in there from the potatoes, so it's going to take a little longer to brown. And you want to wait until this is done to start your eggs. I have, voila, some already made hash from yesterday. So this had sweet potatoes in it and corned beef, and I let it really brown up nicely. Carrots, onions, and you really want that kind of caramelized veggies and the meat, because that adds a lot of the flavor when it's kind of browned like that. You don't want it burnt, obviously. Yesterday they sliced my my corned beef pretty thin, so this corned beef is a little chewy. I think this is going to be better in tonight's batch because they're bigger chunks, but we'll see. We will see. Grab a knife so we can cut into these yolks when we get it done. And I'm just going to take a quick look. Still feels a little loose on the egg white. That one's a little better. So I'm just going to let those go another couple of minutes. So next week, as I said, Mike is going to be doing Gadget Wall. The week after that, Diane is going to be here, and we're going to make 2 blueberry recipes. One is a blueberry mascarpone cake, which is delicious and moist. And the other is called Blueberry Slump, or Blueberry Grunt, both fabulous names, but the only thing better than their names is the flavor. It's just cooked down blueberries with dumplings in them. I was going to say biscuits. Dumplings in it. You put the cover on so it just cooks in the blueberry steam, and it is so delicious with a little bit of ice cream on it. So stay tuned for that. That is coming up. And I think we're going to call it 4 minutes here. So you can see there's a little bit of pink. That is from the red wine vinegar. But these eggs are beautifully shaped. No stringy white stuff. And I'm going to cut into them and we'll see how I did on the yolk. Oh, look at that. Beautiful yolks, beautiful runny yolks. Perfect poached eggs. I did it, everybody. Perfect poached eggs. Woo! So that is corned beef hash with poached eggs, and we'll take a picture of this when it's nice and brown and ready to serve, so you'll see how this turns into that. I hope you enjoyed it, and hope you will make this soon for breakfast, lunch, or dinner, and we'll see you next week. Thank you.